Alright guys, package from China. I believe I know what this is. I have to please excuse the noise outside, but there's construction across the street and there's not much I can do about that. So this appears to be indeed the much anticipated Swordfish from Worker. This one's from NFStrike. I did have a chance, this is actually the day after returning from End War. I did get a chance to handle one at End War, and it, well, first impression, well, we'll discuss first impressions in a second. So this won't be quite a first impressions video the way I usually like to do it with my review. But, yeah, be able to look at this in a little more relaxed environment. The one I looked at was at FoamCon, and it was very, very loud and kind of stressful and stuff like that. So, good grief, that trigger is just gross. There's well, like the shell feels good. Like as far as like it feels solid. I do have to say I don't like the molded in fish detail and the scales and stuff. I'm sure you've seen this elsewhere. There's a handful of reviews out, but yeah, it's kind of a frosted finish, but then there's kind of a recessed and gloss swordfish detail, and then on the handle there's like literal fish scale texture, which is unnecessary, I guess. I mean, like the Prophecy, you know, the Worker Retaliator style blaster is just smooth. It's very, very clean, very nondescript, I guess. It's just kind of like your basic blaster. It's just very, very clean looking. But this here, they tried to jazz it up way, way, way too much with the fish theme, which is very, I don't know, unfortunate. I think, I don't know, I'm not sure you'd be able to get rid of this detail and still have it clear. You'd have to like shave down the frosted area like a noticeable amount, and then try to like either redo the frosted detail or try to polish it out or something. So yeah, if you like the clear, which some people do, some people like LEDs and stuff, you're stuck with fish, which is kind of a bummer. The grip can't be too accurate right now because it's empty. It will feel different when it's got internals in it. It is just a bare, minimalist shell. I mean, there's no flywheels, no wiring, no switches or anything like that. It's just the mechanical bits and the front attachment and rail. But aesthetically, or not aesthetic, like holding the grip, it's I like the fact that it's a full grip as opposed to the Stryfe, which is you know, really cut down. Like it stops right here, whereas this guy you know, it does come down, you know, almost like what, inch and a half further. You know, you get a good purchase, you know, a good grip on it, which that right there is a bonus for sure. But it's awfully narrow. Like it's I don't know, it's narrow. It'd be cool if it had a bit of a curve right here, right kind of where your palm wraps around it, because it juts out just a little bit, which is a little, I don't know, like I have like kind of dumpy hands, like smallerish dumpy man hands, and so it depends on if, you know, how your hands fit things generally. But it yeah, it just seems like this little, like if this nub just kind of rounded off that way, it would help a lot. Which, I mean, there's really no reason they shouldn't, because they could have just rounded around that screw post. But it does seem a bit narrower. Like the grip itself feels thinner. Grab my calipers and see how that compares with the Stryfe. Okay, so you got Stryfe, got calipers. Well, let's start with the Stryfe. I'm going to get two measurements, the actual width overall, and then the width with the extra little bit here on this kind of scale detail. So right there at the narrowest part, or about there. Okay, actually, the dimension itself is exactly the same as far as like right here at the top. This narrowest point of the Stryfe, right above these kind of little grippy looking details. But then that is 21 like significantly narrower. Just adding that little bit. But whereas a Stryfe, to me personally, of course, has a bit of a it's just really the bottom of the grip that really has the issues. The size and shape of the grip of the Stryfe to me is actually really good, but yeah, this is just a lot narrower. How's the angle? Is the angle the same, more or less? Roughly the same actual angle on the grip, as far as the sweep. Yeah, interesting just how much of a difference the shape makes. So we got that guy. Yeah, I like the idea of having a larger grip, but it's not very comfortable. That's yeah, I'm not really a fan. It looks like Nerf compatible rails, which I'd assume is because it works with the Picatinny conversion for other Stryfe kits and stuff. So I'm going to assume that guy just slips on. Actually, it doesn't. So okay. Obviously, there's no like detent for the little NFStrike attachment, little lock-in piece, and there's no ribs to stop any attachments. And technically, they almost fit. At least that one. I mean, actually, you can't even make it fit. I'll be darned. I'll be darned. Yeah, the top bit is it's like the whole rail is pulled down too close. So yeah, you can't even like hook them in because there's not enough room in that slot. Interesting. Now that is interesting. Okay, that one works pretty good. There again, no. I mean, obviously you don't want to put a scope. I'm just testing the attachment piece itself. Dimensionally seems to be close or whatever, but there again, no little locking tab and no rib down there at the bottom either. Huh. It is not symmetrical, which we kind of hoped, at least I say we, meaning myself and several other people I've talked to, that when we first saw it, that you'd assume that it would be symmetrical, because for whatever reason, I don't know why Nerf went asymmetrical here, unless it just keep it minimalist, but it's you wouldn't think it would have been so hard to just add this material on this side for, I mean, anything really. Absence of a jam door is interesting, but I guess if it's designed to work with existing kits, most of them have a flat top or some kind of accessory rail or whatever that covers up the jam door anyway, so that's interesting. I assume this is ABS. It almost feels like I can't say, not nylon. It's like it's a different feeling material. Like if you're accustomed to what the Nerf plastic feels like and looks and everything, it's kind of a satiny finish, and even on the trigger here is kind of I guess a frosted texture, I guess. But yeah, this appears very very interesting, very unusual. How about that? That is just such a gross feeling trigger. Like, it's not smooth. It like catches in places, which is weird. Little buttony lever thing here, which I assume is for the auto kit, perhaps? Or do they have a select fire kit? Or is this a power switch? Interesting. Oh, hey, magwell fits nice. Very, very solid. There again, still, like, it's a good fit. Like, it comes in and out easy. There's not, like, barely enough friction just to keep it from kind of wiggling around. But, like, no wiggle that way, barely any wiggle that way. Huh, that's nice. How do you, get some attachments here. Bit of wiggle there, that's weird. Wow, that's a lot of slop in these attachments. Unless maybe the worker ones being usually pretty snug on stock blasters, maybe they are a bit undersized. for this. Here's an actual worker part, you know, one of those early lightning storm style stocks, and even it's usually, you know, nice and snug on Nerf blasters, but this here even has a bit of wiggle, which is kind of unusual. It's interesting that they went slightly undersized. But yeah, that's like, and even that Stryfe, that locks in nice and tight. You know, it's got just enough room that it comes off easy, but it's not so, you know, like unstable wiggly. That's not awful still, but is especially up and down. Holy cow. Weird. Okay. It's a bit disappointing there. I do recall there being some cage fit issues reported. Just a second, let me open it up and see what I got for cages laying around. I guess before we do that, before we open it up, go ahead and just plug this guy in. Okay, I will give him that. That does seem to be a pretty solid, positive fit. Not like unusually, like disturbingly snug, but at the same time not loose. Does pop in nice and tight. Actually fits better than Stryfe's. It's been a while since I did that. Yeah, the notorious barrel wiggle. Okay, well, you got to give him that. They at least got one of the dimensions figured out, so that's a thing. So now let's open this up real quick. Well, it comes apart nice as far as the shell fit, you know, between the two halves is nice. That's good. Whereas sometimes they want to, like, you have to kind of pop things apart. So that's a thing, I guess. Just put it rather cleanly. I have a containment cage, which, okay, seems to drop in nice and happy. No looseness there. No weird irregularities. No inner barrel. That's weird. But I guess there's no... Okay, it looks like it's a smooth bore. So instead of having the stub barrel that fits in here and just the open bit here, it looks like it's designed to run the worker barrel all the way through. So that's... Huh, okay. Which I guess is convenient because, you know, having seen people try to run the worker barrel thing, you know, like the aluminum or whatever, all the way through, they have to, like, cut two pieces, you know, on either side of the stock Stryfe bit, so that's a thing. So if that was a concern, I guess you can not have to worry about that. So that fits there. Snug, but not like disturbingly snug. Snug that's just like good and solid and not loose or anything. That's cool. Here I have a malice cage from Coat Duck, which doesn't seem to want to work. Apparently the tolerances being just a bit too tolerant, I suppose. Okay, no go there. And for the record, apparently even the stock cage doesn't work because these little support bits that kind of hold where the little shell or the two halves fit together fit right where these little ribs are. So if you wanted to get one even just to run, you know, just move stock internals over or something just for the heck of it, you are out of luck without some trimming one way or the other, which I don't see of anybody being heartbroken, but it's good to know anyway. And we can assume that worker cages should fit, otherwise the designer was incompetent, which I guess we can also assume the artifact should work, and I don't think I have any of the... Oh, hey, what have I got here? I've got one of these. Got a riot. Is this a riot? This is a riot, I believe. Drop this dude in real quick. Okay, and that guy's not going to work just because of the just the way these fit. You'd have to trim off some of these supports on the bottom. Zoop. Just these structural ribs to kind of support the motor mounts. The ribs come up too high that they run into the cage, so you'd actually have to trim those out. It looks like the posts all line up well enough, So you'd have to trim those off to fit the Riot. Well, like I said, that's good to know. I wish there was something you could do with this trigger. Oh my gosh. Interesting. There's apparently something that fits here. Helps hold that in place. There's, you know, screw holes, and there's screw ports below it, screw bosses, but there's about a 1/4 inch of just air between. So I'm not sure what the plan is with that. I guess they have. Oh yeah, Worker I believe uses the kind of mid-range size switch. I mean, bigger than the crappy stock ones, and smaller than Omron clones and stuff like that. So, okay. So this is very much designed to work with their very own products, which is understandable. That's kind of their thing. So, still kind of unfortunate. Man, I wish I could figure out what the issue is with this, because this is just such a. I mean, it's kind of jerky. Like it doesn't operate in a smooth motion. There is like resistance, but it's like crunchy, and it kind of honks like a duck. Which there's no excuse. I mean, the Stryfe trigger stock isn't great, but there's no excuse for not being able to reproduce something, because like stock trigger, it's a Stryfe, you know, but no big deal. But this is just, that's awful. That's awful. And they left the real square face on the trigger, which you'd think if you're making your own trigger round the surface a little bit. I've done that with a few of my other Stryfes that I've worked on. It's just, you know, kind of easing this, putting a nice arc on there so you have a nice smooth trigger piece. But yeah, that's yuck. It's kind of a bummer. No jam door, no anything here. I suppose this fits right at the top of the magazine. So yeah, okay. So that kind of works as a guide itself, which is kind of cool. But yeah, they're really pushing you to buy their auto kit, I suppose, with this. Like if I was desperate, if I had a war and all I had was this Swordfish to build for it, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. So I think that's about all we can do right now. This is the vector connector, so to speak. Which is interesting that they give you a component to fit a kit piece. You'd think it would have been better to offer this as a separate component for when you want to buy the vector kit. Otherwise, if you buy this Swordfish, just wanting Swordfish for Swordfish's sake, now you have this goofy thing for no real reason. Kind of an interesting marketing choice. But I guess interesting marketing choices is apparently the theme with the Swordfish. It just fits in there. It's kind of cool. It just kind of tabs in. That hooks up with the vector kit. Interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. I will say, as far as redeeming qualities, this is just reviewing what I have here, assuming that whatever components you fit in here, whatever apparently auto pusher kit and motors and whatever, are going to be subject to kind of their own merits. The magwell is nice. I will say the magwell is nice. But I don't... I think we're running into a matter of principle here. You have the Stryfe, and there is advertised, you know, Stryfe droughts and stuff like that. People are having a hard time finding them. And so Worker comes out and says, hey, we're going to give you a Stryfe that's not a Stryfe, that's going to be, you know, not reliant on Hasbro's selection to give us what we want. And they give us something that isn't very good, like as far as like just on its own merits. The one complaint that I've always had personally, and a lot of people had with the Stryfe, is the fact that it's asymmetrical, which makes it hard to integrate, because that's my thing. It looks weird. I mean, it's just inconsistent side to side. And you think they would correct that here, and they'd have no reason not to, really. And see, let's give us just a regular 4AA spring terminal. That's really weird. That's really weird that they did that. And I've seen, I don't remember where I saw it, but somebody had a slightly taller battery door to apparently fit LiPos, but then you have to start carving the inside out. Why not? Why not? You know, if they're all about giving us options and extra goofy things that we don't necessarily need, why not make, you take this door off and have the battery compartment itself a snap-in tray that would pop in, and then you can use the battery terminals. But you could pop that out and it's just an empty box behind. And to where you could fit your LiPo or whatever, which would be fairly easy to do. It would be a separate component. But I think dude, I don't know if they don't realize that we exist, or if they just don't care, or what, as far as modders. But LiPo stripes are kind of a big thing, and maybe this isn't their market. But it seems like, at least as a nod to us, I think that would have been fairly easy to do. Just have a drop-in piece that was just the battery tray here. You might have stuck it out a little wider, maybe, as far as to fit everything in there. But it would have been easy to design, I think. Just have a tray that sits in there, even if it's like snapped in or had just a couple screws, and it was just the battery tray itself that you could lift out, and then it'd have the spring terminals and everything, and you just have an empty box behind, which would technically be a little bit more recessed because you'd have the thickness of the plastic that you could fit a LiPo into. And technically, I mean, with the Turnigy Nanos and even some of the smaller graphenes, you can fit in with a very minimalist battery door added as far as an extension, and some of them even fit without. And so why not offer a battery door that's slightly taller and then have the recessed bit here? That'd make it infinitely easier to drop in a LiPo and everything. Or even what you could do is, where it's asymmetrical, why not have the tray on this side like this, and then have the extra width on this side, and have another battery door, you know, kind of mirrored on this side that would just have an empty tray, which you could use for either a LiPo instead of this, and then be able to run these batteries for, say, LEDs or something like that, or some other kind of components or something. It wouldn't have done any harm, because you'd have the benefits of it being symmetrical. You'd have an extra tray. Even if you use the stock battery tray for the batteries, you'd have a compartment here for, say, either some kind of goofy LED computerized brains, Arduino board to do anything, you know, just some kind of added components, ammo counter stuff, just other custom things. You'd think they would have designed this to be more of a free-form platform, instead of like, here's this thing to just use our components. If they'd added all these other features that would have made it more broad, it wouldn't have affected the existing market that they're aiming at. So yeah, it's just interesting. It's interesting. I think really mixed here. Like it's the fish. I don't like the fish. Honestly, like that's a killer turnoff for me. It's just a dumb design choice. If they didn't have the fish on there and just had normal grip still stuff here, a lot of this stuff would be forgivable. But the fact that they kind of put the icing on the cake, as far as like, hey, we're gonna do dumb things just to bother you, then yeah, that's kind of, yeah. You have a Stryfe to replace the Stryfe, and they didn't really correct any of the issues with the Stryfe. It has a bad fit on the stock. It uses a goofy component that they should have just had separately for this. I'm okay with the worker logo. It's a little bit big, but I think I could have forgiven that if they didn't have the dang fish. There's just a lot of things. If you don't care about what things look like and you just want function, I can almost recommend this. It does have, tell you what, number one thing I'm looking at with this, like the best feature so far, it's got a really good magwell fit. Like retaliators and stuff tend to be kind of loose, and you get a lot of like a magwag and stuff flopping around. But that's pretty satisfying. It does feel nice. It doesn't. That's good. I do like that. I don't know if it supports other mag releases. I would kind of hope, but I wouldn't count on it. Not sure about other rev switches and stuff like that. The trigger is just awful. The trigger is actually worse than the crappy fish detail on the side. And it's not like, okay, the aesthetics is personal objectivity or whatever. There's no excuse for that. There should be like a letter from worker apologizing for this trigger. Like, I'm waiting for an email to come in saying, yeah, sorry about that trigger, it does suck, doesn't it? And I'd say, yeah, it does. $30 for it being empty. The Stryfe, I don't know, it's hard to say. The Stryfe disappeared for a while, everybody flipped out. Then we got the modular Stryfe, everybody celebrated, and it was $30, I believe. And it came with the goofy stock that no one likes and the goofy little muzzle piece that nobody likes. And it had stock internals, which the majority of us would tear out anyway. But at least everything else made sense. And we kind of, it was kind of like the devil you know and the devil you don't know. We knew that the Stryfe has issues. They give us another Stryfe, we're like, okay, there's the Stryfe again. It's got these issues, we know how to address them. We get this thing instead, that everybody wanted a clear Stryfe. That's cool, so we got a clear Stryfe, kind of. Everybody wanted a third-party Stryfe, or a Stryfe equivalent, so we weren't relying on Hasbro. That's what we got. But there's just so many negatives here that some things can't be forgiven. This would be valuable, like for me. Granted, of course, I did not pay for this. This is this was given to me for review, trying to remain as objective as possible. I will say, for my purposes, if I was to cut this up for an integration, there's fewer weird things to cut off. You don't have to worry about as much weird angles and things to disagree with other shells. It is rather boxy. The asymmetry is kind of a pain in the neck, but at least it is a flat platform. You don't have to worry about like other layers and textures and stuff and dimensions. You could just add an extra however much on this side. Don't like the grip. I honestly liked the idea of the grip. Like in the picture, I look at it and like, from this direction, it's like, okay, I do like the more boxy grip that doesn't cut off halfway, but it's not comfortable. It's too skinny. I would have to add material of some kind to give it a bit more of a nice manly feel. I do like the fact that we have something that you can buy outright, at least for the time being, unless they change their mind or something. But for the foreseeable future, that has a good magwell, motor mounts that can be modified to accept. That's the other thing. Why not use the exact Stryfe dimensions so that we can use the wide variety of things? Otherwise, you're stuck with a worker cage. So you're stuck with stock crush at best. Unless you modify stuff, you have to start trimming things out. You start trimming things out, now you can't leave it clear because it looks gross, because it stresses the plastic. You get white marks, things like that. So I don't like it. Honestly, I would not go out of my way to buy one of these unless I find some kind of combination of shells or something. Like this might work good with the Centurion to do like the center ride, where it's just this much is going to be covered up, so I don't have to worry about all this stupid crap. It is asymmetrical, but at least it's boxy and doesn't have any weird irregularities to work with. Has nice magwell fit. The grips, I can't even work with the grip. There's not much to work with here. I mean, if you can't get a Stryfe whatsoever, you can fall back on this, I guess. But there again, it's $30, I believe, from different vendors. It might even be more. I think it was on sale NFStrike and Light Ache for about $30, and that's empty. And it's worse than empty. It gives you components that you can't even use stock. I mean, the Stryfe components, we upgrade all the good stuff, and you can even use the stock trigger. Here, you can't even use the stock trigger, and it doesn't give you anything else to work with. So if you need a magwell that's nice, and you want $30 or want to pay $30 for a good magwell, then that's good. If that's what you need, then okay. If you're going to add a automatic kit of some kind, whether it's select fire, I don't even know if that V6 kit will work here because it relies on a lot of other stock things. So yeah, I'm not sure you could. In fact, I think Wacom was working on installing a V6 kit. And I'm not sure how he came along with that. But yeah, apparently Worker has their own auto pusher kit, so I'd assume that's going to fit, and that would correct the. I wish you could just. I hope that shows up on camera because that's just awful. But very few redeeming qualities. This is actually a really big disappointment. Like when this was first leaked and everybody's like, "Hey, we're getting a third-party clear Stryfe." I didn't care so much about the clear, but it's like third-party Stryfe. Cool. We're gonna get something that fixes all the problems we have with the Stryfe. No, we get a different Stryfe that has its own set of issues. So we're really no better off, except that they have another thing, which isn't necessarily a good thing. So I'm going to say use your own judgment here. I hope I gave you enough information to work with, because it's not technically awful. It's just very far from good. But if you can work with the bad things and you're going to be correcting those anyway, then I suppose I can't stop you. It's just very unfortunate, and I guess I wish I had more Stryfe kits, which I would assume that Worker kits would work with this. Otherwise, Worker got stupid on us really quick. So, yeah. Best parts, it's got a nice feeling magwell. That's about it. There's plenty of bad things. Bad grip, weird fit here, weird cage compatibility, crappy trigger. It's way too many negatives for me. Like, as far as the negative to positive ratio, it's like 20-1. And so I'm going to say, personally, I'm going to pass on this one. So if something happens, I think I will try to integrate this later. I don't have anything right away that I need to work on this with. But if something comes along, I'll see if I can correct any of the ills through, integrating it into something else. So that'll be kind of an interesting little adventure. But yeah, unfortunate negative on the Swordfish. So I'll go ahead and leave the buy link in the description if you really want one anyway, and that's totally fine. And I guess we'll see you next time. Wishing blue skies and green lights to you and yours, and may all your troubles be teeny weeny ones.